On the 18th of August, 1966, 108 Australian infantrymen of D Company, 6th Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, walked into a rubber plantation in Phuoc Tuy Province. According to the Australian government's Anzac portal, they faced some 2,500 North Vietnamese troops, with at least 1,000 in direct contact. The fight lasted nearly 4 hours in monsoon rain so heavy that visibility collapsed to 70 meters. The next morning, the Australians counted 245 enemy dead where they fell. They had lost 18. Every 10-man section in that company carried one weapon that no other infantry force in the plantation possessed: a 6-pound, single-shot launcher that could arc a high-explosive grenade over the tree line and drop it into the lead rank of an assault wave. The weapon weighed less than a loaded canteen. It made a sound the Viet Cong learned to fear before they learned to describe it. Before 1965, an American rifle squad in Vietnam had a hole in its firepower exactly where the Viet Cong liked to kill: a hand grenade. The M26 fragmentation traveled as far as a man could throw it, 35 meters under combat conditions, maybe less in elephant grass, less again if the man throwing it had been awake for 40 hours. Beyond that, the next explosive option was the 60mm mortar, whose minimum range left a gap of 70 meters or more. Between those two numbers, 35 to 300 meters, the squad had nothing that could arc over a tree line and explode on the other side. The Viet Cong built their entire tactical doctrine inside that gap. Spider holes dug at 100 meters, L-shaped ambushes triggered from 200, bunkers behind bamboo thickets that flat trajectory rifle fire could not penetrate. On the 8th of November 1965, the 1st Battalion, 503rd Infantry of the 173rd Airborne Brigade walked into exactly that geometry in War Zone D. The VC Q762 Regiment caught the lead platoons in a textbook L-shaped ambush near Hill 65. Automatic fire from a tree line barely 200 meters away, invisible behind canopy, immune to everything the pinned Americans could shoot back. The brigade lost 49 men killed. The initial American claim of 400 enemy dead was, per Army historian John Carland, a guess, which Williamson made in the immediate aftermath of the battle under pressure from MACV headquarters. The gap was real. Men were dying in it, and the weapon that closed it started with a golf ball. Springfield Armory's Project Niblick got its name because a deputy named Jack Bird proved the concept by using a length of pipe to launch a golf ball. The Army type classified the result, the M79 Grenade Launcher, on the 15th of December 1960. By 1964, it was the most prized item in American armories across Vietnam. 6 pounds loaded. One man carried it, replacing an entire mortar team's explosive output at squad range. Its 40mm high explosive round produced a 5-meter kill radius and roughly 300 steel fragments on impact. One round could shred everything inside a spider hole. The muzzle velocity was 75 meters per second, slower than a major league fastball, which meant the launch sound traveled faster than the grenade itself. The Viet Cong heard the hollow bloop before the round arrived. At 150 meters, a trained grenadier could drop a round into a bunker aperture. At 350, he could saturate a tree line. 5 to 7 aimed rounds per minute, not automatic, but relentless. The comparison told the whole story. Before, a rifleman could throw an explosion 35 meters.
After, the same squad had a man who could arc one 350 meters over the canopy and drop it into a hole an artillery battery would have flattened 10 meters of jungle to find. Captain Vernon Gillespie of Detachment A312, 5th Special Forces Group, ran a battalion-sized Montagnard strike force of 750 men out of Buon Briang CIDG camp in Darlac Province. Most of his Raudet fighters carried World War II surplus carbines and BARs. According to the Army Special Operations Command's official history, the camp had exactly 2 M79 grenade launchers. Gillespie rotated them between every patrol that went out, the 2 most fought-over weapons in an armory serving 750 men. It is the earliest documented in-country combat use in open-source U.S. Army records. Specialist 4 George McDonald of Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry, hit Landing Zone X-Ray on the 14th of November, 1965, carrying an M79 and 36 rounds. What happened to him in the Ia Drang Valley, and why his story captures the Grenadier's central contradiction, is coming. But first, the weapon had to prove what it could do at scale. When the PAVN assault opened at X-ray from a distant tree line, McDonald's launcher could not reach. The range was too great, open grassland stretching beyond 350 meters, the M79's effective ceiling. He was the squad's explosive weapon, and his weapon was useless. McDonald set down the launcher, borrowed an M16 from the man beside him, and fired at muzzle flashes until they stopped. Each cavalryman had hit the LZ carrying 300 rifle rounds. McDonald had 36 fat grenades and a .45 pistol. When the M79 could not reach, he was a man with a sidearm in a battalion-sized fight. That was the Grenadier's contradiction. The best explosive weapon in the squad, until the fight was in the wrong place. Every man who carried the M79 loved it and cursed it in the same breath. It was built for jungle arcs, for the close, canopy-covered killing ground where the Viet Cong preferred to fight. In the open, the Grenadier was just a man carrying a 6-pound tube he could not use. But the jungle was where most of the war happened, and in the jungle, the M79 did things no other weapon in the squad could touch. Hue City, 1968. Corporal McMahon's squad, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, was clearing house to house through the Citadel. After civilians fled a contested building, Grenadiers launched M79 rounds through second-story windows from across the street. The hollow thump echoed between stone walls. Glass blew inward. Then the squad went through the door and cleared room to room. All 8 enemy inside were killed. The M79 had evolved into an urban breaching tool. A grenadier could punch a high explosive round through a single window at a range where a hand grenade could not reach, and an artillery round would have leveled the block. That was the tactical logic. The M79 worked because it gave one man a precise explosive he could aim at a specific point, a window, a bunker slit, a spider hole, without calling for fire support that would take minutes to arrive and destroy everything within 100 meters of the target. Then came Long Tan. The 18th of August, 1966, Phuoc Tuy Province, D Company, 6th Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, 108 Australians under Major Harry Smith entered a rubber plantation to find the mortar positions that had hit the Australian base at Nui Dat the previous night. Every 10-man section carried one M79 in its load. At 1540 hours, 11 platoon under 2nd Lieutenant Gordon Sharp, 21 years old, walked into the VC 275th Main Force Regiment. Within 20 minutes, more than half of Sharp's 28 men were down. Sharp was killed.
Then the monsoon hit. Rain so heavy that visibility collapsed to 70 meters. Smoke grenades refused to rise out of the trees. The company fractured into 3 islands of resistance, each fighting blind in a rubber plantation that had become a killing ground. When 2nd Lieutenant David Sabin's 12th Platoon pushed forward to relieve what was left of 11 Platoon, his grenadiers fired yellow smoke marker rounds from their M79s, the only signal that could cut through the rain and the canopy. Sergeant Bob Buick, who had taken command of 11 Platoon after Sharp fell, saw the yellow smoke and brought 10 survivors toward it. The M79 had reopened the corridor. At 1725, roughly 200 enemy assaulted D Company headquarters. Captain Maurice Stanley of the New Zealand Artillery walked 4,000 rounds of 105mm fire to within 100 meters of the Australian positions. The artillery broke the reserve assault line. The rifles and M79s broke the lead line, the one close enough to hear the bugle calls. At nightfall, armored personnel carriers from 3 Troop 1 APC Squadron broke through with reinforcements from A Company. The next morning, the Australians walked back in. They counted 245 enemy dead where they fell. D Company had lost 18 killed and 24 wounded. The Australian government's Anzac portal records that D Company had faced some 2,500 North Vietnamese troops, with at least 1,000 in direct contact. The dominant killer at Long Tan was artillery, but the M79 was the section-level answer to assault waves that came on whistle and bugle, the only explosive a 10-man section could put into the lead rank at 200 meters without calling for fire. The Viet Cong learned to spot the grenadier. The fat-bore launcher, the bandolier of oversized rounds, no pistol grip. He was the most visually distinct man in the squad. And multiple veteran accounts confirm the VC and NVA killed him first. Eliminate the grenadier and you killed the squad's only organic explosive. Andy Roy, an M79 Grenadier with the 173rd Airborne Brigade, carried the weapon for 2 months. It became so bad in the 173rd Airborne that it became the hard rule that the weapon had to be carried with the breech open unless under fire or in the rain. The enemy wanted the launcher itself. Roy again. The communists in SVN, Laos, and Cambodia always tried to capture as many as they could. The weapon had its own betrayal built in. The spin-arm fuse needed 14 to 27 meters of flight before the round went live. Inside that distance, about 30 meters, the grenade was an inert metal ball. In jungle, where contact happened at 10 meters, the grenadier's primary weapon was a paperweight. And when the grenades were gone, he had a .45 pistol. Bob Start, hit by friendly M79 fire near the end of a firefight, described the sound that preceded it. All of a sudden I heard this bloop. The shrapnel caught me in my neck, collapsed my lung, broke 2 ribs, blew my thumb off. The M79 created the Grenadier, a permanent infantry squad position that survives today in the M203, the M320, and the Mark 19. Navy SEALs brought the original launcher back to Iraq because its rifled barrel still outranged every underbarrel replacement. DevGrew's cut-down pirate gun was photographed after Operation Neptune Spear in 2011. But ask the men who carried it what they remember, and they do not talk about range or lethality or kill radius. They talk about the sound, a hollow bloop somewhere in the brush, then silence. Then a 5-meter circle of the world disappearing in steel fragments.
The weapon is gone from most armories now. The sound never left the men who heard it, on either end.